Well, the first Friday of every month, we invite Chris Hull from McNally Robinson Booksellers to bring 5 books in to discuss, and we call it What to Read. Now, of course, there's a lot of other books to choose from. These are featured in their bi-monthly catalog newsletter, but Chris has chosen 5, and we'll see what they are right now. Good morning, Chris. Nice to have you back.
Hello, Michael. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, it's beautiful weather in May.
Isn't it? It's a lot better than last month.
What was it last month? I don't remember.
It was a frosty April morning.
Was it a frosty April morning? Okay. Well, things are looking up then.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to dig in right away to these 5 books, beginning off with one of my favorite authors of all time. I've always enjoyed reading his books, going back to 30 years ago at least. Michael Ondaatje's got a brand new book out. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. He's one of my favorite too. Canadian, but world class.
Canadian legend.
Canadian legend, sure, absolutely. His new book is called Warlight. Of course, he became extremely famous with The English Patient. The movie was a huge hit, and the book was as well. And so that's a few years old, but nobody gets quite that big as an author, generally speaking, but he's written all kinds of other books in The Skin of a Lion, The Cat's Table, Anil's Ghost, and a lot of collections of poetry too.
I like the one about Buddy Bolden. I remember reading about that.
Yeah,
jazz fan,
Coming Through Slaughter.
Coming Through Slaughter. I love that one.
Absolutely,
An early book of his.
And I think he is originally a poet, so he's lots of poetry, great poetry. So his new book, Warlight, is about a 14-year-old boy, Nathaniel, and his older sister, Rachel. Takes place just after World War II in London, and their parents leave. They just tell them they have to go. They have a job they have to go to in Singapore, and they leave. They leave them in the care of a man they don't know very well, a mysterious figure they call the Moth. But with a
not a superhero, is he? Sounds like one of those superheroes.
Well, maybe realistic.
The
superhero.
Ant-Man, the Wasp is the Moth.
The Moth. With Ondaatje, it's almost beside the point to talk about the story. It's his writing.
Okay, let's move on then.
Yeah, exactly. The story is like the surface, and he's got such depth in his books, and there's so much happening beyond or underneath, in the silences and in the unknowns and in the shadows, and so when you think you're learning about something, there's always a deep past or unknown motives or something happening, and so there's mystery at the heart of this one. But the mystery shifts. I don't want to give too much away. The story is important, but you think the mystery is in this direction, and the questions are about this character, and then it shifts, and you realize, wait a minute, it's this character so it's got this slipperiness to it, and this depth to it, and an emotional depth to it. It's really remarkable. I mean, I love his writing. You can get lost just in the sentences themselves, but yeah, good story with all kinds of things to just keep you wondering.
And just mention his name.
Yeah,
Michael Ondaatje, and there you go.
Exactly. I should mention that it's actually releasing this Tuesday, so I got a sneak peek for reading this book. So
I can see it there. I can see it right in front of me.
This is a limited advance edition.
Limited advance edition. Wow, right. It's going to be worth something someday.
Special delivery for me.
All right, so we have Paula McLean next, Love and Ruin.
Yes, Paula McLean is very well known for her novel The Paris Wife. That's a few years old too. That was a story about Ernest Hemingway's first wife, Hadley, when Hemingway was a young writer in Paris. So really a story about his wife. He was played a side role in the novel. Then McLean came back with a book called Circling the Sun. That was a love story connected with the novel Out of Africa. And now she's back with this new one, Love and Ruin, which is back to Hemingway's world. A novel about another one of his wives, Martha Gellhorn, who in 1937 travels to Madrid on her own to cover the Spanish Civil War, and gets caught up into the stories of the people who are affected by it, but then gets caught up in a love affair with Ernest Hemingway, and she needs to make a decision at some point whether she kind of gives in to being a domestic wife of a famous author, or whether she strikes out on her own. And Martha Gellhorn became a journalist and author of her own right. So I think we know how that went, but I think it's
Good choice.
Yeah, good
She
story.
made a good choice. Not just living with but living with Hemingway is
Sure,
probably adding
absolutely.
another layer of what the challenges would be as well, right?
Domestic might be the wrong word.
Absolutely. That sounds like a cool story. I'm kind of intrigued by that one, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So now we get to Simon Winchester. Simon Winchester is I don't even know what to say about him. His writing is so in-depth and well-studied. You know, I mean, it's like taking a course.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, with a very charming professor. Yeah, he his famous book would be The Professor and the Madman. That's when he came
Guns,
upon
Germs, and Steel too, right?
No, that's
a
Jared
different
Diamond.
guy? Jared Diamond,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, no, Simon Winchester wrote The Professor and the Madman, which was about the
okay,
writing
yeah.
of the very first edition of the Oxford English Dictionary, and there was murder involved and things you'd never expect. So he made his name there, and he's since followed up with histories of the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean, just basically collections of stories that center around those two bodies of water. In this new one, he traces the development of technology from the industrial age right through to the digital age, and studies the concept of precision. When manufacturing first started in the industrial age, if you got a part to within a millimeter of each other, you could, the things you were building would work well enough. But then the challenges of trying to build a lock that would be unpickable, or a clock that would tell time at greater and greater accuracy, then that level of precision wasn't enough. And so he takes literally chapter by chapter, and as the development of machinery and technology, and it gets to be greater and greater precision until he gets into gene splicing and atom smashing.
Where does it end?
Well,
I don't know.
Who knows?
Wait,
I mean, it's already infinitesimally small.
Yeah.
He literally goes from 0.01 millimeters to 0.000 multiple zeros, 1 of a millimeter.
The math is beyond me, I know.
Oh, yeah, well beyond me.
The concept is kind of beyond me, really.
Well, yeah.
Because I tend not to be that type of a person that's so worried about the precision, I mean.
Yeah.
But I guess in a world of engineering, if you're not, you're not
it's
gonna
vital.
succeed,
And
right?
we rely on it every day. We drive these vehicles. We use our cell phones. These are all based on this kind of technology. So it's a fascinating story, although, it could be dry as dust in other hands. But Winchester could write the phone book in a way that would be absorbing. So
that's his next book.
Maybe it is. Well, I look forward to that. But he really can spin a tale. So it's fascinating. So if you're even remotely interested in this history told from this perspective, I can highly recommend it.
All right. I'm in conversation with Chris Hall from McNally Robinson Booksellers. It's the May edition of What to Read. We're featuring 5 books that are featured in their bi-monthly newsletter. So we go from Simon Winchester and technology to a bit of whiskey.
Yes, well, whiskey, part of the story, I guess. It's The Whiskey King by Trevor Cole. Trevor Cole is a Canadian novelist, more known for his humorous novels. He's been nominated for the Stephen Leacock Award and the Governor General's Award, so a good writer, too. Novels like Practical Gene and The Fearsome Particles, Norman Bray and The Performance of His Life. But this new one is nonfiction, although it reads with with the pace and
like a
suspense
story
of a crime thriller. Yeah. It's a story of a Canadian crime boss and his RCMP detective nemesis. The crime boss being Rocco Perry, who rose. He was a petty criminal in the streets of Toronto and rose to run one of the more prominent bootlegging operations in the Prohibition era in Hamilton and Southern Ontario. And then Frank Zaneth he was the first RCMP undercover officer, and he became the man who, I guess, devoted his life to tracking down this crime boss. And there's a mystery at the end of it. Perry just goes missing, and not really sure what happened to him. So Trevor Cole combines his gifts as a storyteller with research into this story. It's a really remarkable Canadian book. It's not generally what you think of as a Canadian story, but it's kind of interesting that all the gunplay and the secret midnight deliveries and everything you can imagine is in this book. It's it was
good
good story.
Both Italian immigrants, right? And they kind of went different
That's true.
directions, came from different parts of Italy. You know,
That's
one
right.
went with the law, one went against the law,
That's
right?
There's
And they
lots
sort of how they
morals.
mesh and how they come
Yeah.
together. And then, you know, and Rocco Perry's wife as well was a big part of it too. Bessie Stark, when I was reading
Yep.
about that
Yeah.
and doing it, you know, which is kind of neat, right? It became a family affair as well,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, and kind of lets you know. I was always aware that Hambledon had this underside to them, but I didn't know anything about it. So learned a lot about it in this
Mhm.
book.
That's called The Whiskey King, written by Trevor Cole. If you like that type of book about the mafia and about whiskey and all sorts
right.
of
Bootlegging.
So we're gonna wrap up with a book from bootlegging to birds.
Yeah, this is a little different book for me to bring in. I thought I would change the pace a bit.
I like it.
Yeah, it's called The Best Places to Bird in the Prairies. It's by John Acorn, Alan Smith, and Nicola Coper, and it's literally how to go to the right spots and look for the right birds in the prairie provinces. They are birders themselves, of course, so they draw upon their personal experience and as well as professional experience. They reveal their favorite destinations. There's lists of the specialty birds, the ones that you'll only find in certain places. Lots of photography in it. Insider tips for identifying birds through all 4 seasons. And they highlight there's 36 of their most highly recommended sites, places to go to find unique species. And
So this covers Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, right? Alberta,
yeah.
Manitoba, Saskatchewan.
yeah, absolutely. So if you're a birder, then this will be
I think
a
even
great
not
guide.
though. You know, I mean,
I
everybody
think
likes
so.
to spot.
Yeah, I think
mean,
so.
I wouldn't say everybody. Most people
Yeah.
like to be able to spot a bird, especially when it's one different.
Yeah, I think
know?
so. Yeah, exactly. I and some of these sites would be close to places where we go for various reasons, cottages or visiting relatives or whatever it might be. So yeah, a little different spin on a trip through the prairies too.
After being cooped up
Yeah,
inside
exactly.
all winter, we just want to
Yes.
get outside and be with nature. And one of
Sure,
the great
grab this
things
book
is
today.
about all the books that come alive, or all the birds that come alive and
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
come back to come back
Absolutely.
to the prairies after going away for the winter. It's,
They start singing in the spring the way the rest of us do, hey?
yeah, absolutely. Whistle while we work. I've been in conversation with Chris Hall from McNally Robinson Booksellers. It's the May edition of What to Read. We just covered 5 books: Michael and Dachi, Paula McLean, Simon Winchester. We have Trevor Cole, and then we wrapped up with The Best Place to Bird in the Prairies, John Acorn, Nicola Coper, and Alan Smith. And you can check our website, classic107.com, little description of each of those books, and we link you to their website where you can read about them as well and pick them up online or visit them in person. They're open now at the Forks as well, so go check them out. Chris, thanks for coming in again.
Thank you, Michael.
See you in summer,
Excellent, yes.
in June.
In June.